friends, welcome to Story Time. I am so glad that you're here. As I always say, I have so many favorite books, but I am going to read to you one of my all-time favorites. And the reason that I want to read it to you today is because we're going to talk about making connections. It's really important that when you read a new book, you're making connections, and we're going to talk about what that means. So today we're going to read Our Tree Named Steve. Have you read this book before? I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite stories. I love when an author really tells a story and it can make your heart really feel like it's in the story. And so we're going to read this story today, and then we're going to talk about making connections to this story. Our Tree Named Steve by Alan Zweibel. Dear kids, a long time ago, when you were little, Mom and I took you to where we wanted to build a house for us to live in. But in order to build there, men had to come and clear the land. So we know from this first part that someone is writing a letter. And I'm guessing that it's mom or dad because I'm guessing that it's dad because he's saying mom and I, and he's talking to the kids. So let's see what happens. Let's see why he's writing a letter. I remember there was one tree, however, that the three of you couldn't stop staring at. Adam thought it was crying. Lindsay said it looked nervous. And Sari, who was only 2 years old, couldn't pronounce the word tree and called it Steve. I love you, Steve, she kept saying. And then Adam and Lindsay started saying it. And before too long, Mom and I got the hint and asked the builder to please save Steve. Do you see Steve? Steve is a huge tree. The day we moved in, Steve was there to greet us. He quickly worked his way into your lives as a swing holder, target, third base, hiding place, jump rope turner, and whenever our dryer broke down, he held our underwear with pride. Can you see all the underwear hanging? And the underwear on the head of the dog. Yes, right there in the corner of our yard, this weird looking tree grew to become the center of our outdoor life. Through all our barbecues, campouts, dance parties, or when Adam and Lindsay started getting crushes on the Simon kids next door, Steve adjusted to our every need. And it wasn't always easy, standing tall through snowstorms in the winter, or when Uncle Chester napped in the hammock. Couldn't possibly have been fun. Not to mention the time that the sewer overflowed and Steve sucked up all that smelly water before it drowned Kirby. Who do you think Kirby is? Who in this picture could drown if that water wasn't soaked up? I'm thinking Kirby is their dog. Then got so sick himself that the tree doctor had to give Steve a haircut, and that made him look like a big thumb. Through the years, Mom and I have tried to show you, in a world filled with strangers, the peace that comes with having things you can count on, and a safe place to return to after a hard day or a long trip. Which brings me to the point of this letter. Last week, a storm hit our area. And though we spared Steve's life long ago, this time we couldn't save him. What happened to Steve? Sometimes storms come, and if a tree isn't feeling good or the wind is too strong, sometimes something can happen to the tree. Are we sad? Sure we are. But even in his final moments, when he could have fallen on our house, Sary's swings, Kirby's house, or Mom's garden, Steve performed his last trick and protected all of us to the very end. And friends like this are hard to find. I love how much they love that tree. So when you come home from Grandma's next week, Steve will not be able to greet you as he's done in the past. I'm sorry. But please know that Steve will always be with us, in our hearts, in our thoughts, and in a different tree at the other end of our yard. See you next week. Love, Dad. Can you see what they did with Steve? What is Kirby looking at? They took Steve and they built a tree house. Isn't that so cool? I love how much they love that tree. Now I want you to think. I want you to make 3 different types of connections. So the first connection I want you to make when you read a book is I want you to think how this book relates to you. So when I'm thinking of this book, a couple things come to mind. 1, I've always loved this story. But 2, it reminds me of a tree. It was a dogwood tree in our backyard that was just always part of playing in our backyard. It was just always there. And it really reminds me of that tree and how much that tree was a part of our lives. So that's the first connection. I want you to think about how a book can relate to something with you. Then the second connection that I want you to make is I want you to think about if this book reminds you of any other book. So as I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, what other book does this remind me of? So I want you to make a text-to-text connection. So I'm thinking it reminds me of this book, Tree. And it reminds me of Tree because this book honors how much trees mean to us and the part they play in our lives. So when I'm thinking about this book and what it reminds me of this book. And I'll read this next so that you get to know this book too. So first I made a connection to myself, then I made a connection to another book. And then the third type of connection that I want you to make is I want you to think about this book and our bigger world, your bigger world. So when I'm making a text to world connection, I'm thinking, this book makes me think about how I should really care for and be kind and thankful for the things in my yard. And so, or at the park, how we have to be kind and caring to the things that take care of us, like trees. And so that's what this book makes me think of. So every time you read, I want you to make 3 connections. The book to you, the book to another book, and then the book to the world. Okay, so make those 3 kinds of connections. But just so you know, the other book that I'm making a connection to, I will read Tree by Britta Teckentrup. And she makes beautiful books. She has one about bees. She has a Christmas one. They're beautiful. And what I like about them is they're peek-through books. So you peek through at the owl and you'll see that we get to peek through at more animals. In the forest, all is still, gripped by winter's icy chill. Owl sits watching in his tree. No one sees as much as he. Snow is melting all around. Shoots are peeping through the ground. In the trees, young bear cubs play. Spring cannot be far away. Do you see how you can peek through? Blossoms fall and leaves are growing. A gentle springtime breeze is blowing. Squirrels scamper here and there. Playful fox cubs sniff the air. Birds flit through the leafy bowers. The forest is abloom with flowers. Birds are singing, foxes play. Summertime is on its way. Now summer's here, the sun is high. Bees are humming in the sky. Juicy apples, ripe and sweet, almost ready for you to eat. Do you see how you can peek through and see lots more things in the tree? On a warm midsummer's night, all the stars are shining bright. The trees sway gently to and fro, shimmering in the moonlit glow. Now it's cooler all around. Apples tumble to the ground. Grass is damp with morning dew. Clouds drift across the skies of blue. Autumn leaves turn red and gold. Days are warm and nights grow cold. Food is gathered and stored away, ready for a winter's day. So do you see how the tree is with us through all the different times of year? The cold north wind begins to blow. Animals shiver, it starts to snow. Time to shelter, find a bed, prepare for winter months ahead. The forest floor is snowy white. In his tree, Owl sits tight. Deep midwinter's here once more. Wise Owl has seen it all before. It's silent now. No sounds are heard. Not a fox cub, not a bird. The trees are still. The snow lies deep. All the forest has gone to sleep. The seasons have all come and gone. Snow has fallen. Sun has shone. Owl sees the first new buds appear, and so begins another year. The end. So do you see why these two books kind of remind me of each other? Because they're both about honoring trees and taking care of our outside world. So I hope you enjoyed today, and I want you to be thinking of those connections as you read your books this week. So I will see you next time. Have a good week.